In the quiet, unassuming town of Ohio, life for Michael Turner was about to be turned completely upside down. One morning, the piercing sound of sirens shattered the neighborhood's peace, and Michael found himself in handcuffs, accused of a crime so brutal it was almost unthinkable. The police claimed he had murdered his neighbor, Lena Brooks, a young woman known throughout the community for her radiant kindness and gentle spirit. As he was led away, Michael's pleas echoed through the morning air, a desperate cry of a man caught in a nightmare. He was innocent. Michael was a factory worker, a man who lived a simple, unremarkable life. He was the kind of neighbor you'd nod to in the morning, the guy who kept to himself but always had a friendly word if you stopped to chat. He had no criminal record, no history of violence, nothing in his past that would even hint at the capacity for such a heinous act. But on a cold December morning, that all changed. Lena's body was discovered in her apartment, and the scene painted a grim picture. The evidence seemed to stack up against Michael with terrifying speed. His fingerprints were allegedly found at the scene. A broken window latch, they said, pointed directly to him. In the eyes of the law, every piece of the puzzle screamed his name. He was their prime suspect, and the case seemed open and shut. Suddenly, the whispers started. The same neighbors who once shared pleasantries now looked at him with suspicion. He always seemed a bit off, one might say to another over a garden fence. I knew there was something suspicious about him, another would claim, their memory conveniently reshaped by the shocking news. The local media, hungry for a story, fanned the flames. Headlines blared from newspapers and television screens. Local man arrested for brutal murder. Michael's face was plastered everywhere. His reputation destroyed overnight. The court of public opinion was in session. And the verdict was swift, but Michael's friends, the people who truly knew him, were stunned. They remembered a quiet but fundamentally kind man, someone who would go out of his way to help if you asked. How could the man they knew be capable of such a horrific crime? It just didn't add up. The community was torn in two. On one side, there were those who were convinced of his guilt, swayed by the police reports and sensational media coverage. On the other side were his friends and a growing number of skeptics who felt that something was deeply wrong with the official story. How could a man with no history of aggression suddenly snap and commit such a violent act? The question hung heavy in the air, dividing families and friends. Michael sat in a cold jail cell, his life in ruins, while the town he called home became a battleground of belief and doubt. The police were confident they had their man. The case against Michael Turner appeared to be airtight. The fingerprints, the proximity to the victim, the supposed motive they were trying to construct had all created a compelling narrative for a jury. But as the lead detectives began to dig deeper, to meticulously review every piece of evidence, tiny cracks began to appear in their perfect case. There were small inconsistencies at first, things that could easily be dismissed, but they began to add up. One of the detectives decided to re-examine the security footage from a nearby store, a camera that just barely caught a glimpse of the alley behind Lena's apartment building. When they enhanced the grainy video, they saw it, a shadowy figure, cloaked in darkness, lurking near Lena's window at the exact time of the murder. And according to Michael's work records, he was miles away, clocked in at the factory, with multiple witnesses confirming he was on the assembly line. This was the first major inconsistency. Then, a new witness came forward. An elderly neighbor, initially too frightened to speak to the police, finally shared what she had seen that night. She reported a strange car, one she'd never seen before, parked on the street just outside Lena's apartment. It was there for about an hour and then sped off into the night, just before the first police cars arrived. She couldn't recall the license plate, but her description of the vehicle didn't match Michael's old pickup truck. By the time police went to investigate her claim, the car was long gone, leaving no trace. The investigation was now at a critical turning point. The once solid case was beginning to crumble. The detectives were faced with a disturbing possibility. What if they had the wrong man? What if Michael Turner was telling the truth? The town was abuzz with theories. Some still clung to the belief that Michael was a cunning killer, that the new evidence was just a series of strange coincidences. Others were now firmly convinced that he had been framed, that a far more sinister game was being played. The pressure mounted on the police department to either solidify their case against Michael or find the real person responsible for Lena Brooks' death. The mystery was deepening, and the search for the truth became more desperate than ever after weeks of relentless investigation and public debate. The final, undeniable piece of evidence emerged, and it blew the case wide open. The forensic lab had been running tests on a tiny sample of DNA found under Lena's fingernails, evidence of her struggle against her attacker. When the results came back, they were shocking. The DNA did not match Michael Turner. It didn't match anyone in the police database. It belonged to an unknown individual, a ghost who had committed a brutal murder and then vanished into thin air. Faced with this irrefutable proof, the prosecution had no choice. The case against Michael collapsed. He was released from prison, a free man in the eyes of the law, but his life was forever changed. The whispers never completely faded. The shadow of the accusation would follow him for years. He had his freedom, but he had lost his name, his peace, and the simple life he once knew. The town of Ohio was left with a chilling, unanswered question. Who really killed Lena Brooks? And perhaps more disturbingly, why did they go to such great lengths to frame an innocent man? The real killer was still out there, a faceless phantom who had not only taken a life, but had also destroyed another. The truth of that cold December morning remains buried, a dark secret in a town that will never be the same. Stories like this, where the line between guilt and innocence is blurred and the truth is hidden in the shadows, happen more often than you might think. If you want to dive into the most shocking and mysterious true crime cases from around the world, make sure you subscribe to Havex Crime Files TV. And don't forget to hit that bell icon, because you won't want to miss the next story we uncover. It just might blow your mind. Thanks for watching.